So thanks so much for coming. This is our last speaker of the series, Norm Knight. So he earned his bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering from Embry Riddle in 1990, and then moved to the Johnson Space Center as a Space Shuttle mechanical systems flight controller, where he worked about 40 missions. And then he kind of progressed through industry, through management roles. And then in 2000, he was selected as a flight director and worked on numerous ISS expeditions and space shuttle missions in that capacity. In 2009, he became the deputy chief of the flight director office and participated in a NASA fellowship that actually brought him to Harvard over at HPS in general management. In 2012, he was as the chief of the flight director office and then the deputy director of flight operations, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2018. And now he joins us here today. So Norm, take it.
Well, Jasmine, thank you for the kind introduction. It's really an honor for me to be here. I very much appreciate the invite and look forward to sharing any experiences that I have. But I'll give a real quick, just overview of what I do at NASA that hopefully it'll give some context maybe to some of the discussions that we have today. So big picture, there's 10 NASA centers. One of these NASA centers is in Houston. It's the Johnson Space Center. And what we do, we're centric to human spaceflight. So everything the agency does relative to human spaceflight, Johnson Space Center is leading and participating in that. So it's very exciting. And within Johnson Space Center, there's a lot of entities: engineering, safety, quality, mission assurance, those type things. And one of these entities is called flight operations, and that's where I work. So kind of taking it from the 10,000 foot level down to flight operations. And within flight operations, what we do, we're an organization of around 2,500 people. And we work for the major programs: the International Space Station program, the Commercial Crew program, and the Artemis Exploration program. And what we do is we take their mission objectives. We then we understand what those are. We plan it, the mission. In this case, the astronauts that just lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center that docked to the International Space Station last night, they're going to start a 6-month, we call it an increment. So we have taken and planned that mission out. We've trained them. We've trained the folks in the Mission Control Center in Houston that are working on station. And then we go execute the mission, just as you saw unfolding last night, if you had a chance to do the docking. So within flight operations, we also have, it's kind of like a tripod. That was one leg of it, was the plan, train, fly. The second leg is the astronauts. We have about 47 active astronauts that are under our purview, part of our organization. And then we have aviation assets, aircraft, the T-38 aircrafts that help train the astronauts. We have some science research aircrafts and transport aircrafts as well. And we have about 60% of the aircraft assets for the agency housed at the Johnson Space Center under flight operations. So that kind of gives you a big picture of what we do and what I do on a daily basis. And with that, Jasmine, I guess we'll start out with fostering the discussion and see where it takes us. How's that?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks so much. So a big focus of the seminar series is talking to people that have experienced academia and have transitioned into industry. And so, you started from Riddle, from the Prescott campus. And how did you know that you wanted to fling yourself straight into NASA? And then why the management aspect? What was your intuition telling you as you finished your bachelor's and proceeded onwards?
So one thing that I'm a big believer in is follow your dreams and trust your heart, trust your instincts, and find something that excites you. Understand what your passion is and let that drive you, because in academia you're gonna be centric to the learning knowledge and the critical skills of thinking, and it gives you an aspect of industry, but it doesn't give you a broad aspect. So hopefully while in academia, you have an opportunity to look around and kind of see what's out there in industry that excites you. And when you find that, those are the things that I say run towards. because if you're excited and that's your passion, you are going to flourish in those jobs. And that's a win-win. It's a win-win for you. It's a win-win for the industry and the corporation or government entity or whatever that you are working for. And it's a partnership, and you both grow, which is exciting. And it ends up benefiting this country and humankind. So you think of the implications on this, and it really is that powerful. So that would be my advice that's what I did going from academia to industry. I looked around, I said, hey, what excites me? And I didn't know. I loved aircraft. I loved spacecraft. I wasn't sure. I grew up in the Houston area around NASA, but to be honest, it was so close to me, I couldn't see it. And, I took time to look around. I had a friend that said, hey, come out and see what I'm doing at NASA. And when I did, I was like, wow, this is it. This is what I want to do. And so I ran towards that. And it's been great. I've very much enjoyed it ever since. I won't tell you every day is a great day because, but it's all about attitude. And so if you can't find your passion and run towards it, find something close and realize that, hey, maybe this is a stepping stone to getting you where you want to go. And just go in with a great attitude. Be thankful for the job. Be thankful for the opportunity. Be thankful for the people around you that you get to learn from and they get to learn from you. And it'll work out, I assure you. It all comes down to, I think, attitude and passion.
Great answer. Thanks so much. And also to the audience, feel free to jump in the chat with any questions, considering this is, flow. And then from my side, I guess I'm just going to jump kind of into looking at things today. We have a few space enthusiasts and we have a few, astronaut hopefuls in the audience today. But now that we're looking at such an upcoming emergence of the privatized space industry, if you were in our shoes today, would you jump still straight into NASA, or what's the best way to explore the parameter space that's of us today if we did want to make that transition out of?
I think it depends a lot on what you want to do relative to the space industry if you want to get involved in it. So if you're in manufacturing, if you're in a job that is development of rockets, development of turbomachinery, high-speed flight, just like SpaceX just did and demonstrated with their Falcon rocket and Dragon capsule. Look at the private industries. There's a lot of them out there. It is, I think, the best time to be in space. And I will tell you, I think it's going to continue to be the best time in space. I would also not discount the government. The government has a big role in helping orchestrate really human spaceflight in general, because what we're embarking on is the Artemis program. And what Artemis is going to entail is a gateway space station around the moon for science research and a launching off platform that these human landers that are going to be developed by private industry and commercial industry to transit from Gateway to the moon or transit directly from Earth to the moon, and then hopefully to Gateway, drop off payload, get that payload back, science, humans, whatever, to Earth. So, NASA's kind of, you could think of the conductor of that, making sure that all these players know what the overall plan is and where they fit into it to make music at the end of the day for human spaceflight. And that music is space exploration and finding our human destiny of continuing to push forward to bounds that we think today are impossible, but in 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to look back and say it's commonplace. And so that's what excites me. And that's why I say it's a great time to be in space. So I would explore private industry. It's super exciting. It really is fascinating. I get so energized when I go visit these companies and I see what they're doing for their employees, for this country, for the world. And it's a new era. in space flight right now.
Okay, I see that Chima has a question. Go ahead.
Hey, Norman. So you were talking about how, yes, this is a new age and private industry is instrumental in it. But you were also talking about how like government entities are like a conductor or a navigator for them. I'm curious on your opinion on whether you think, whether you trust private industries to navigate the moral and rigorous dilemmas of space exploration without the guidance of governments.
Excellent question, and it's one we've really struggled with, because I'm going to answer it in two parts. So the first part is to kind of lay out the scheme of what NASA is doing with these commercial partnerships and why we're doing it. In the past, NASA used to build their own rockets, build their own spacecraft, or build our own spacecraft to go accomplish the mission, because industry could not do that. They could not handle the risks. They couldn't handle the financial capital to go in and do this. It was really the dot-com revolution, in the early 2000s that really spawned these billionaires that could then take that money and drive these companies that, were their childhood passions of space flight, the Musks, the Bezos, and many others. And so it opened up a realm now where industry does have capital that can go do this. The question is, can they manage those risks? But what NASA's looking at is we have really changed how we think, in that instead of NASA doing all this by themselves, what we're doing is we call it building a road. And so we're building and paving a road that commercial will travel on. And it's a partnership between NASA and our government, NASA in particular, and private industry. And so what NASA's doing is seeding these industries, helping them financially, helping them from a technological standpoint when they need it to grow. And we're fostering competition in the business realm as well, because we don't want one sole provider, we want multiple. Drives down the cost. And so we do that. They then can provide a service that NASA buys. NASA buys that service. Overall, that's cheaper. Plus, it's growing jobs in the country. It's driving industry in this country. It's bringing in international partners. All those good things that we want. Then NASA moves forward to the next goal, does the same thing, and buys that service. So you saw that with commercial cargo early on, probably 10 years ago with cargo, where NASA before, it was really countries that can only get cargo into space. Now, Sierra Nevada is working on cargo. We have Northrop Grumman that has cargo missions going to station. We have SpaceX that's doing that, and NASA's buying that service. NASA then moved on and said, hey, we want to do the same thing with astronauts, with crew. And that's what you just saw on Sunday when that commercial crew, we call it commercial crew rocket, launched from the Kennedy Space Center that SpaceX developed. NASA's now buying that service. Boeing is on their heels for the same type of service that they're providing. And then NASA's moving forward with Artemis for the landers. And so as this road gets paved, industry then travels on it. Your question was, hey, how do we manage that risk? Well, we work in a partnership, because industry is maybe over here on this extreme, and maybe the government's over here on this extreme, maybe too cautious on the government side, maybe a little less risk averse. The industry is more risk averse. They're more agile. They can run faster. At the same time, you don't want to run off the cliff, because if you run off the cliff, people die. And we cannot tolerate that in human spaceflight. That's just something that we don't want to tolerate. And so we kind of bring the best of both together with the government and industry. We pull each other towards a common center. And it's a good tension, healthy tension and balance in managing that risk, and at the same time being agile to drive this development and to allow rapid expansion into to these human spaceflight designs that are moving us into the future.
So a follow-up question to that, is there anything preventing private industry from just saying, forget NASA's regulations, we're just going to do what we want?
So the private companies are under the auspice of the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. So they have to get an FAA license to launch from any United States launch site or re-enter back into the atmosphere. So they have to have a launch license and a re-entry license to make sure that, again, all these protocols, there are reasons they do that, and there are good reasons they do it to manage it. So they're under the FAA authority. Could they go without NASA? Well, they probably could. There's some private ventures that are being worked right now for the International Space Station that companies are looking at putting, potentially private astronauts into space. And so there's a whole effort being worked associated with that. A lot of that you have read in the news already, so this isn't, something new, but you can see how this is evolving over time. Now, in 10 years, 15 years, could a private company put their own space station in orbit and have tourists going to it? Possibly. I mean, I think it's very probable. And then you then expand that to where hopefully the costs come down and you get more people to have access to space. So time will tell. It is under regulation, but the job of the government is to help foster and spawn industry to be able to do these things. So I see that becoming a reality.
Okay, we have two other raised hands. Let's hear from Jonas first.
Jonas. I am an undergraduate, and I've been really interested in robotics for space exploration, looking at JPL and stuff like that. Do you know about future JPL missions or the future of, space exploration via robotics? I know they're trying to put a robot on Jupiter's moons to explore those, but I'm kind of interested in if you know any of it, new upcoming projects or launches that they're working on.
So I don't know of any new launches coming up. Obviously, we have a rover going to Mars, which is exciting. But I'll tell you in context, all human exploration is great, but it can't be done without first pathfinding that with robots. And we did that at NASA for years. Jet Propulsion Laboratory has been at the forefront of that, and it's an exciting place to work. They have a lot of academia in their ranks. That's really how they're composed at JPL. And the mission is exploration through robotics that, again, is paving a road that human spaceflight can then travel on. So it's an exciting place to be when you look at all the advances in robotics today, when you look at the procurement changes and the evolution that NASA has gone through to, it used to be to put Viking on Mars a long time ago. It took 20 years or 15 years to get that, through all the development cycles and procurement cycles. Now they're doing these things very quickly, very rapidly, and getting them launched. And so there's more of them. That development is a quicker cycle. We can explore more. And it's, again, a pathfinder for humans. So it's a great field to get into. If you're interested in that, I would contact the Jet Propulsion Lab and reach out to them. And I know they're excited for help and ideas and a fresh new set of eyes into better ways of doing things. That's what NASA's all about.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, Jonathan, you are next.
Norm, I wanted to ask you about your role as a flight director, and in particular, since the retirement of the shuttle, the flight directors have been, operating the expeditions on the space station, but have had a more backseat role in Soyuz flights and now in commercial SpaceX flights. With Artemis, we're going to be once again having flight directors running human space flights in the sort of more dynamic mission phases. And how can you say a little about how that's going to be different and how you folks are preparing for it?
Absolutely. Very, very good observation with that. For shuttle, our real dynamic phases of flight were launch and landing, and of course, the rendezvous docking periods. With station, now that it is fully assembled, or at least, has reached that plateau on the number of modules that are up there, we still do a lot of critical activities on station. There are spacewalks. There's a lot of science is being done. There are, and I call those high stress points where it's high risk for the team to manage. It's a time frame that's compressed, and it's a time frame where if things go wrong, you have to be on point, ready to go to make sure that you're crisp and on the spot. Otherwise, astronaut safety is jeopardized, the vehicle safety is jeopardized, or the mission objectives are jeopardized. But it's a little different regime than that high-speed flight when a rocket, is taken off and it takes 8.5 minutes to get from, stand still on the launch pad to 17,500 miles an hour on its first orbit insertion burn. So, there is a difference. And so we have captured a lot of that experience. We do a lot of leadership development within flight ops to share that experience, but we're having to grow some more of that experience for our Artemis missions. But the good thing is we have a good baseline with the flight directors and the flight controllers that are working some of the commercial crew aspects. Our flight control team at NASA is actually providing the operations for the Boeing orbital flight tests and the crewed missions once they come online. And so that skill set is being nurtured there, it's being utilized there, and that will then help spread into the Artemis ranks as well. So we're continuing to grow that, nurture that, and it's something that we look at very closely from a skill set standpoint to make sure that we maintain that expertise as we go forward.
And just as a quick follow-up, I know a lot of the students here are astronaut hopefuls, but maybe some of them might end up as flight control room hopefuls at some stage in their careers. Do you think a background with a PhD in astrophysics is something that could lead someone to a job at JSC?
Well, we cover the full spectrum. And so, I have a bachelor's degree in engineering. And as a flight director, one of my flight director cohorts has an astrophysics doctorate. And so, that's kind of the full extreme. Most of the flight controllers and flight directors have a bachelor degree. I would say 30, maybe 40% have a master's, and then very few have a PhD. What we do is more operational engineering and applied engineering. We're systems engineering across multiple systems and how those systems function, our ability to maintain those functions as a whole, manage the risk, and really orchestrate all the points and pieces and putting them together to go accomplish the overall goal.
Okay, that was a thumbs up from Jonathan. Let's go to Yvette.
Hi there. So speaking of astronaut hopefuls, my name is Yvette. I'm a postdoc at CFA, and I applied this time and the last time. I see several people on this call who also applied. I know several dozen other astronomers at other institutes who are also as well qualified as me to apply. So, I mean, it's one of those, I think, if you're guys 1 in a million, there's 10 of them in the New York area type things to apply to be an astronaut. But I was just wondering, do you guys actually read all these applications in the first time? Is there any way to distinguish yourself? That sort of thing. If you can shed any insight, that would be great.
So to answer your question, yes, there are lots of applicants. I don't recall the exact number we had this round, but a previous round on the order of 20,000. I mean, it was incredible. And I've been on the astronaut selection panel. I'm on the astronaut selection panel currently, and we do read them. We spend a lot of time looking at the complement of experience and skill sets that every one of you bring to the table, and we evaluate, we look at, and it's a hard selection to take 20,000 people and down select to a couple hundred that you want to do an interview with, down to picking and choosing You know, whether it's 12 or 10 or whatever number you pick, it's incredible. And, you know, the great thing is there's a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of excitement. And at the end of the process, it really gives me hope for this country and the world when I look at these applications, at the amazing talent and the amazing people that that have such an interest in space and human exploration. So, you know, what would make you stand out? Well, first I tell folks, just be you, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want the genuine person. We don't want an act. We don't want someone trying to, hey, it's pretty cool to be in space, so I can do these exact things to get you know, a slot as an astronaut. Follow your dreams, follow your passions. Obviously, you have to have teamwork skills and be able to work in a team. You know, taking that academic knowledge and applying it somehow, some way, either in industry or a lab or something that you can demonstrate that you can metabolize this and be at the top of your field. You know, showing that you can work in a combined team in a high stress environment and manage stress in a way that, you know, you can fly an airplane and not panic when you're landing. You know, that because at the end of the day, you're going to be either on board the International Space Station or on board Gateway or on board a human landing system landing on the moon or going further. And we need you to be able to work in a team. We need you to be able to communicate. We need you to have a good attitude. We need you to be able to have aptitude in your skill set, whatever that is, and function and be able to function in a high pressure environment with others and be a great ambassador for NASA, all of our international partners and all of our commercial partners as well. So it's a complete package. And again, we evaluate every single one of them. And it's a really exciting and fulfilling process. So I wish you well with that. And I don't know if you had any follow-ups.
No, it just sounds like keep applying because you never know. So thanks.
Absolutely. I've had, you know, you probably in some of these blogs and some of the astronaut stories that they provide, you know, I think one of the astronauts applied like 6 times and it was the 7th time that they got in. So there's no magic number, but it's perseverance. It's that drive that you know, you whether you get an interview or not, you try to get feedback on what could make me better as a candidate. And then you go and you apply that and you make yourself better. And if you get an interview or you get selected, great. And if you don't, you're that much better in whatever field you're in any team you're working on. So it really, it benefits you in the long run. And if you get to be an astronaut, that's icing on the cake, you know?
Thanks, Yvette, for the great question. I actually had a follow-up question to that. Norm, I don't know how much you can speak on this, being on the committee, but can you elaborate a little bit on the expansion of the mission specialist role? So, for example, you have many more disciplines pouring in, right? Like 18 flying. But for people that are specifically in astrophysics, like Yvette, Chima, and I, you know, people on this call, we're not, for example, astrobio focused. So what would you, could you speak a little bit more on, okay, what does it mean to be a mission specialist in 2020 versus, you know, 2010, for example? And then B, what are some of the skills that you see highlighted that you've noticed maybe specifically from our arena?
Well, what I see and how I see it all play out is, you know, it's that complete package. And so if you have an astrophysics degree, if you have a biological science type degree, if you have an engineering degree, if you're a pilot and bring that skill set to the table, or an academic or a teacher, whatever that skill set is, all the rest of that package has to be there in addition to that. So we're not exclusive or excluding in any way any discipline brought forward. So I don't know if I'm being articulate enough, but because you bring an astrophysics perspective to the table. If the rest of that package is there and you're, have demonstrated in your field competence and all those skill sets that we look for, you will be just as great a candidate as someone bringing a biological degree or someone bringing an engineering type degree to the table. So from a mission specialist standpoint, we're looking across for a package we can then take and build on. And we absolutely utilize the skill sets you bring to the table. I mean, some of the folks are medical doctors. And so we utilize that aspect when they're up there for science and research. And astrophysics, we do the same thing for study of the stars, study of the galaxy, those type of things. But we can also utilize the fact that you've demonstrated this to teach you new skills for science and research that NASA needs that may or may not be associated with your exact degree.
At the end of the day, the name of the game is fluidity, being fluid,
Absolutely.
presenting the basic package, and then showing that, changes the name of the game.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I see that Chima also has his hand raised. Chima, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, so the Artemis came about during the Trump administration, and normally the support and disfavor of space exploration varies with the political leader. And now, after the election, it seems that the Trump administration is no longer going to be present. So how do you think that will affect the Artemis? Is it robust, like the plan robust enough to adapt to the change in funding likely decrease with the administration change?
Well, we're waiting to see on this, because you're exactly right. And what we've struggled with at NASA is, just like you said, when an administration changes, a lot of times NASA's direction changes. And when NASA's direction changes, well, obviously that impacts schedule, it impacts cost, it impacts those long-term goals. And so what Jim Bridenstine has done, he's our NASA administrator. He has really worked hard for bipartisan support for Artemis. And so he has worked worked with, the congressional leaders in all the states, and really, I think, did an excellent job of showing how Artemis works for this country and how this goal of human exploration for science and research with a gateway and for the lunar exploration, not just to go there once like we did for Apollo, but sustained presence on the moon, putting in a policy for mining and the assets of the moon, in addition to looking forward and saying, hey, we're not just going to go there once, we're going to colonize this thing, we're going to set up lunar bases, small at first, but evolving, we know, over time. And so hopefully that bipartisan support will carry over to the new administration, and they can see, okay, this is a benefit. This isn't something that has one person's name on it. It really has, the country's name on it. This is something that the United States has championed. There are a lot of international partners that are going to be part of this. It's exciting. It's like taking space station and expanding it, for a lunar presence with those same type partnerships that we have today that are so important, not only to research and science, but diplomacy. And so I'm hopeful. We know that funding plays a big part. And as you said, we don't know what the funding is going to do. And if the funding goes down, obviously the schedule slips out. And so it's a wait and see. We work for the president. Whoever that president is, that is what we do at NASA. We work to accomplish their goals. And I'm confident that whoever is in there recognizes the importance of space, the importance not only for this country, but internationally, what space provides, not only from a science and research standpoint, but again, bringing people together, demonstrating that we can all together accomplish common goals. And when things get tense, sometimes space is that outlet that continues to bring us together when tensions maybe in other areas are strained. So, it's exciting times. We'll see what happens. And I have been through a lot of these administration changes over my 30-year career at NASA, and I just focus on the goals. Whatever goals are set, we're going to go accomplish, and I try to keep the emotion out of it and just remain excited with a good attitude.
Okay, great. Thanks. Let's just keep on driving no matter what obstacles we go against.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much, Shima, for the great question. So I don't see any other hands up right now. And I was just wondering then, maybe we can reorient the focus back to who you are, Norm, and what's in your toolbox at the end of the day. What are some of the skills in your 30-year career at NASA that you've really relied the heaviest on? And I also see that you have some slides up. So maybe if you wanted to cycle through some things, but it's totally up to you.
I will do that. And let me just start by saying, I think one of your earlier questions is, when did I decide that management role was right for me? And this is a good lead in to what I'm getting ready to talk about. But that was hard for me because I love the technical. I love getting down, being a flight controller, being a flight director, having, my hands kind of in the pie relative to orchestrating and making sure all the piece parts are moving in the direction and working daily in that environment. And so I hesitated going into the management role. But, I will tell you now, while it's rewarding as, being a flight director or a flight controller on console when that mission's a success, the success to me now is growing leaders in the organization that will go off and do bigger and better things than I could have ever done, or the people around me. And that's what it's all about, because that scale factor with growing leaders, giving them roles and responsibilities, watching them grow, mentoring them, they then go out, whether it's NASA or private industry or whatever they do, they're taking those skill sets and they're doing the same thing. And it's a force multiplier. And again, helping this country to be a success in space, bringing international partners on, again, all those things that I had talked about, but it starts with that. And so to me, that's my greatest reward now when I look out and I see folks that, the investment in them early in their career has paid off so significantly as they go forward. So, it's that to me is the rewarding piece of everything. And I couldn't see that when I was down in the trenches. So it's something I think you have to take on faith and evolve into, but it's good. A couple things that from a leadership standpoint, just, take these again with a grain of salt, but at least listen to what I'm saying, because maybe at some point in your career, I call it a toolbox or a portfolio of assets that you carry around with you, and their life experiences and things that maybe people have, you heard in a lecture or a TED Talk or a professor or a friend or a mentor, whatever. And you might not snap to it immediately, but, maybe a day later, years later, decades later, you go, wow, I remember some small piece of this, and it comes into play at some point in your life. So, what I tell you is the big things that I think and look for with people when they come into NASA or we're trying to develop them is attitude, aptitude, and the ability to communicate. Positive attitude is key. Clearly, you got to be smart. You got to bring a skill set with you academically, and you have to be able to communicate effectively. And those are things that we look for. And so if you look in the mirror and you say, wow, maybe I'm lacking in one of those, work on it. It makes a difference. People see that. A lot of folks laugh when I say the attitude piece, but I had a individual at work that really provided a good analogy for me. They said, you as a leader control the weather in all circumstances that you're in. And I thought, wow, that is profound, because you walk into a room of folks or your team, and you have a sulky face and you've had a bad day and you carry that in there, you'll watch the whole room go down and you'll bring it down. If you go in with a good attitude, you'll bring that whole team up. They're inspired, they're energized, they're feeding off your energy. So you control that. And leadership doesn't mean you're at the, the C-suite level in the corporation. Leaders are all through the organization and in all teams. So, don't think you have to be at the top to be a leader. Let me pull up some slides here and I'll kind of talk through that. Let's see, Jasmine, help me again on where that sharing button went.
So I think your screen you've been sharing this entire time. So right now we're seeing your leadership illustrations PowerPoint. So.
Oh, I thought you were seeing me. My bad.
We are seeing you on the side. It depends on everyone else's setup, but.
Okay. So here's a couple things. These are about 10 slides. I'll go through them quick. If you have questions, ask. But, what I see a lot with folks is they want to make their job or make what they're working on sound very complex. And I think if they feel they can make it complex, it provides some self-worth or some context like it's important. And what I would tell you is it's really the exact opposite. It's more simplistic. You can communicate things. I always say if you can explain it on the level of a fifth grader, everyone can understand it. And we know that you can understand it. We're going to ask you questions and you should be able to we'll drill down if we need to. But the easier you can explain it big picture, the more effective you're going to be in your job. So it's just something to, don't think because you simplify it that it doesn't provide self-worth or the importance of what you're working on. This one, can you see this one, Jasmine? It's like a chalkboard.
Yes.
Are you there? Okay, good deal. Thinking, uh-oh, I pushed the wrong button. These are profound. And it's something that I saw early in my career. I actually took a photograph of it because it was so profound to me. And I experienced a lot of these things. And so they're important to me. Don't let someone else's opinion of you become your reality. Be yourself. Have confidence. Don't let your boss or somebody that's important to you change who you are or make you feel anything less. You're going to have bad days at work. I've had bad days. I mean, I've left work literally almost in tears. You have good days and you have bad days, but never let that bad day, drive a bad life or a bad week or a bad month. Snap out of it. It's going to happen. That's just part of it. It's part of learning. It's part of growing and developing as a leader. If you're doing something you don't want to do, it's never too late to change. Use it as what you're doing as a stepping stone to get to that next point and evolving into exactly who you want to be. And you're in control of that at the end of the day. No one else is. If an opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. I see this all the time. Things in space, and I will tell you, I think everywhere, everything's evolving so rapidly that when you see something that needs to get done, or if you want to do something that there's no job for, or no one sees a role for that, make one. And in most cases, you'll be successful in doing that, and you will benefit, significantly. So will the organization. And then begin each day with a grateful heart. Recognize that what you're doing, you have an opportunity. You have a job. Think of all the people that don't, and go in with a good attitude and just make it happen. I have a lot of people that come in that I mentor, and I was one of them when I started. This is my plan, crystal clear. I see the end point. This is where I want to get. But in reality, it's not smooth sailing. There's going to be peaks. There's going to be troughs. And just recognize that. Again, it goes back to don't let, having a bad day ruin your life. And don't let failures along the way change your course, because you'll learn more from the failures than you will, I think, from a lot of the successes. But it's the mindset of doing your best, trying your hardest not to fail. But if you do, get back on the horse and start riding again. See, Jasmine, are you seeing this one with the rowboat? Just to make sure it's
Yep,
updated? Okay. This is a great illustration, and we see this a lot. I see it a lot within NASA, within corporate. I do a lot of leadership events with corporate America, and I see this there as well. You know, you got a rowboat, and you got folks down at the bottom that are just bailing, and it's going down. But you have folks on the other side thinking, hey, we're not impacted. You know, NASA has 10 healthy centers. There's a lot of infighting sometimes between those centers. And at the end of the day, if the centers are not aligned and in sync and helping each other succeed, guess what? NASA goes down. If within your organization you have strife between two organizations, competition or ego or something that's driving a non-harmonious, alignment to the goal or trying to succeed at that goal, guess what? That boat's going down, and at the end of the day, both are going down with it. So this one's profound, and I think if you have not already seen this in your academic career, I guarantee you will see this in your whatever job and role and responsibility you have. So it's your job to look out for this, help bring these teams together, and realize, guess what? We better all bail, and let's work on plugging the hole. I talked a little bit about attitude. That is 90% of the problems that I see, at least in my day-to-day job. Finding solutions for problems, you put teams on it, they look through it with different lenses, and you start a path forward. But it's that attitude of being able to say, you know what, we're going to find a way, and it's having a positive attitude. COVID, 7 months ago, I could not have, told you how we would continue operations of the International Space Station, launch the first commercial crew demonstration mission, and then launch the first operational commercial crew mission to the International Space Station, all while working, under the auspice of this pandemic and all the protocols and constraints that it has. But it took folks with a good attitude that, you know what, we're going to improvise, we're going to overcome, we're going to find a way. And we have. And a lot of things that we thought in the past were impossible have now become possible, and we're evolving in ways we never thought. So, take things like this as an opportunity. That's on a big scale, but little things on a day-to-day basis, that attitude drives you. So, just keep it in check. Confidence doesn't mean you're always right, but what it means is you're taking personal risk to step up to the table, as we call it, put yourself out there with either a comment or a decision or a question. And, I was always told there's no stupid question. And I would always say, that's hard for me to believe. But one of my early mentors said, you ask a question, look around the room and see how many people are actually writing something down. He said, that'll give you a good indication that they may not have had the courage to ask, because no one wants, human nature is you don't want to feel stupid. You don't want to raise your hand and be the center of attention and be wrong or say something that, wow, what did I say? Why did I say that? Boy, it was obvious. But I can't tell you how many times I ask questions, and I ask a lot of questions, and people are writing things down. And sometimes it's changed the whole course of the direction our organization has gone just by asking questions that I didn't know, and others do it as well. So it's important and it's powerful, and that courage is something that takes time to develop, but is something I think critical to work towards. The difference between a master and the beginner, we talked about this with that path that's never straight for your career. It has a lot of troughs and peaks, good times, bad times. Those failures you're going to learn so much more from. Don't try to go fail, but if you do, take the opportunity to really debrief it to yourself and your team, figure out what went wrong, and move forward. You're better for it, so is your organization. I talked a little bit about that inner strife with the rowboat. Hey, we're sitting on top of the rowboat, everything's fine. This one just takes a little bit further. When ego gets in the way, or whatever would drive you to not want to listen to someone else's opinion or thoughts on a matter, be open to ideas, be open to constructive feedback, and assess it, at least assess it, and then determine what you want to do with it. This one's beautiful. The person has a wheel, but that's okay. We're going to continue plowing through the dirt as we go forward. But if you think about that, I don't know if you've seen it in your academic career, but I've seen it over and over in NASA and commercial, working with our commercial partners. There are a lot of great ideas out there, and sometimes ego or something gets in the way. And again, we can be so much better if we just keep that in cross-check. And then the last one, those failures, just get back on the horse. It's preparing you for life. And it's part of it. It's just the way it is. And it's really to capitalize on those, learn from them. And at the end of the day, that those portfolio of assets of experience are things that are going to really make you special as you go forward and really help any company, industry, people you're working with, or family that's in your surroundings. So don't underestimate it.
All right, thanks so much, Norm, for those excellent quotes and for even throwing Jack Sparrow in there. that was really funny to see. But yeah, Captain Jack always has something great to say, huh? If you could just stop sharing the screen if you're done with the presentation itself, and I guess we're coming up at the top of the hour. Thanks so much. So I'm just going to open up the floor for any last minute questions. Otherwise, we will go ahead and thank Norm and call it a day. Chima, go ahead.
Yeah, so when looking at the boat sinking, it made me think about climate change. So I know NASA does do work with that, but I'm curious for specifically on the space launch and more nears towards deeper space exploration. Do they have climate change considerations in mind?
Are you talking climate change considerations for deep space travel from a Earth obs and research standpoint, or I'm not sure I followed your question exactly.
So both actually. So we do know that launching rockets can affect obviously do affect the atmosphere. I guess we don't know exactly how. Do we take these in consideration when we do our Omnis, when we plan our Omnis project? And also for just I know NASA has like planes that survey in low orbit, but do they plan to use the methods and skills with Omnis for further improving or surveying the environment?
Yes, yes, and yes. So first off, the rockets and the impact on the environment is very small. Most rockets use hydrogen and oxygen. Some of them use oxygen and a propellant, jet fuel that they use in aircraft. You mentioned with oxygen, you can use it as a propulsive device. That, in the scheme of things, is so small. It looks, you see it, the close-up of the launch pad, so you see this fire and smoke, and you think, wow, that's a whole bunch. When you're actually stepping back and looking at it, you're seeing the impact on that is very small. For Earth obs, NASA does a lot of Earth research, both from a human standpoint and from a probe standpoint, autonomous, meaning satellites that are observing the waves, they're observing the climate, they're observing the temperature and these things to see how it changes. We still don't know what is making the Earth tick. We think we do at some points, and then we learn more. And so it's really that evolution of knowledge on really what are those big levers, as we call them, that you turn the lever, you see a big impact. So what are those big levers for the Earth that is making our Earth get hotter or cooler? Is it part of a cyclic activity that's occurred since the Ice Age? Or is it something that the humans are contributing to, or volcanoes are contributing to, or something else that maybe we haven't tapped into? So it's that thirst for knowledge. It's that thirst for putting the data on the table, divorcing the emotion from it, and letting the data drive, hopefully, the solution. Right now, with climate change, what I think is unfortunate is there's a lot of emotion in it. And it's because I think we're in the infancy of the data. And really, we need more data to then start saying, wow, okay, which direction should we go? And let the scientists try to agree. There's a lot of disagreement in the scientific community right now. What that means to me, at least as an engineer, is we need more data that can then expand really the perspective that folks are looking at this with to then drive us to what is really needed. So I'm excited with that. NASA's a big part of that. I think these commercial partners are as well, because the ability to put satellites up faster and in a cheaper fashion means we can put more up. And the more satellites and the more observations we have on the Earth, the more data we'll get. The more data we get, the better we understand it. The better we understand it, the more we can fix the problem when we understand it better. And so that's exciting to me. Artemis, in general, it's further away, obviously, from Earth, but I think there are things that that we're going to find from deep space, some of these deep space probes, that, you know, what other influences are there on the Earth that from the ionosphere or past the ionosphere that we can't see from a cosmic standpoint that might be influencing our environment in ways that we don't know. Science and research is going to be a big part of that. And, you know, just if you've read any of the recent things on the moon, just to give you an example on those limited data sets, we thought we knew a lot about our closest celestial body, which is the moon. I mean, you can look up, you can see the thing. We've done a lot of probes. We've done a lot of research, but it's recently, you know, when we said, hey, we're going back in a sustained manner, that not only the US, but internationally, they've been putting a lot more emphasis on the science of the moon. Is there water? What's below the surface? How does it interact? What's going on with that mass? And we're finding things that we did not know in the past that are exciting, because it really is opening the door to, you know, I keep saying human colonization of the moon. I truly believe it. I truly hope that we get there, because the more we understand the moon, the more we understand the Earth and those inner dynamics and how they play together. So again, I'm a big advocate of expanding the data set, letting the data drive us, and finding out what's going on with the climate, both on Earth and the moon. Long-winded answer to your question, but it was a very deep question.
Yeah, as an astrophysicist, I know that more data is always welcome.
Absolutely. And we'll never have enough, but hopefully to get that set where you can really start, you know, piecing together some of this stuff, because it's complex. It is so complex, as you well know.
All right, with that last question, I just wanted to thank everyone, and Norm especially, for showing up. Thanks for such a fruitful discussion, and the guys, thank you so much. So, well, that was our last speaker of this seminar series. And with that, I just want to, you know, give a little applause and wrap it up.
Thanks,
Hey,
Norm.
Jasmine,
Okay.
thanks for having me today. I am honored. This is very special. You know, I remember my time at Harvard. I think of the Charles River a lot, and the beautiful trees. I don't miss the deep snow.
Yeah,
But,
we just lost those.
and I'm excited about, you know, your colleagues, and you're our future. And so it's an honor to be on this panel. I hope that there are a couple grains of salt that people will be able to take from this. And, you know, if folks want to follow up at any point, please feel free to provide my contact info, and I'll be happy to follow up. And again, you all are our future. So please don't let us down.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.